This is for lesson 1.5, which is on adding integers. There's a few important rules that should be in your math rules notebook on adding integers. The first is if you have two integers, whether they're negative or positive, and they have the same sign. So it's either a positive number plus a positive number, or a negative plus a negative number. You're going to add the absolute values of those numbers and then use the common sign. So if they're both positive, the answer is going to be positive. If they're both negative, the answer will be negative. The second is, what if they have different signs? So one of them is positive and one of them is negative. So for example, negative 3 plus 4. In this case, we're going to subtract the lesser absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 3 is 3 from the absolute value of the greater value, which is the absolute value of 4 is 4. So you do 4 minus 3, and then use the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. So 4 has a greater absolute value than 3. So it's going to equal 1, and it's a positive 1 because 4 is positive. And the last is the opposite. So this is like from our last section. So the sum of a number and its opposite will always be 0. And this is called the additive inverse property. So if you had negative 4 plus 4 is equal to 0, or if you had 4 plus negative 4 equals 0. So those are kind of the rules for adding integers. Make sure these get into your notebook. So let's use an example using a number line. So if we had negative 2 plus negative 3, since it's a negative number, we're going to get smaller. So we're going to move to the left 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. And we end at negative 5, so our answer is negative 5. For the second example, we have negative 6 plus 8. So we're starting at negative 6 here, but we're going to have plus 8, and 8 is positive, so we go to the right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 spaces to the right, so we're going to end up with 2. So complete the problems using a number line to find the sum. So draw out your number lines and try the 3 problems. Press pause now. So now let's try it without using the number line. So example 2 is kind of using our knowledge of the rules to add 2 integers. So if we had negative 32 plus negative 27, since they have the same sign, they're both negative, we're going to add 32 plus 27. The absolute value of them is 32 and 27, and that's going to be our integer. And since they're both negative, the sum is also going to be negative, so we keep the negative sign. So in this case, negative 32 plus negative 27 equals negative 59. A second example, when they're not the same sign, is negative 63 plus 39. Since they're different signs, we're going to do the absolute value of both and take the larger integer minus the smaller. So 63 minus 39 will give us our 24 for the integer. And since the absolute value of 63 is greater than the absolute value of 39, that means the sign is going to have a negative sign, or the same one as the greater integer. So in this case, it's negative 24. So use this as a guide and look back at the rules to complete the following 3 problems to find the sum without using the number line, using these rules of if they have the same signs or different signs. Press pause now. Example 3. What happens if we have a problem where we have to add more than 2 integers? So for example, this problem, you record withdrawals and deposits in your checkbook. The starting balance is $265. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. Sorry about that. Let's do anything that's positive in green, we'll underline. So the starting balance, that's how much you initially put in. The first withdrawal, a withdrawal meaning you're taking out, so we have a negative, is 20. The second withdrawal is $92. Again, we're taking that out. And then your first deposit is 40, so we're putting money in. So anything that's underlined in green here is positive, and anything in red is negative. So they want us to find the final balance. Well, here we have our 265 and our 40, which is the positive money, minus or plus negative 20 plus negative 92. And now we can just work from left to right in order to find the answer. So first we add 265 and negative 20 to get 245. Then we add our 245 and negative 92 to get 153. And then we go ahead and add that 40 in to get 193. So the final balance is $193. Use this as a guide to complete the following two problems. And our last example is evaluating variable expressions. So there's two examples below. We have 34 plus A, and then B is A plus B plus 44. And we're going to use the information they gave us here, where A is equal to negative 18 and B is equal to negative 26. So the first step is we substitute in for A. So 34 plus negative 18. They have different signs, so we're going to subtract the absolute value of 34 and 18 from each other. And we're going to keep the sign of 34 since it's greater, so we get 16. In this case, we have three numbers, so we have to substitute for A and B. So we have negative 18 plus negative 26 plus 44. Negative 18 plus negative 26 is equal to negative 44. When you add that to 44, these are opposite, so it will always equal 0. So try the final three problems on your own at home and bring them with you to class tomorrow. Also bring any questions you may have, and make sure your Math Rules notebook is up to date.